12-year-old in the back alleyways of New York, Jamal clutched his worn-out hand as he went down the cracked pavements, firmly in his notebook in the faint illumination of the streetlights. As he stood waiting for his mother near the corner of a small grocery store, he looked out the glass window at the world outside, which was full of towering skyscrapers and luxury cars. But no one could see his genius despite pages full of detailed engineering sketches, numbers, formulas, and blueprints. At that moment, a sleek black limousine drew up, its doors flew open, and someone stepped out as the neighborhood was filled with sirens. Donald Trump was there to support an effort encouraging entrepreneurship at a community engagement event that day in the neighborhood. Unimpressed, Jamal observed from the crowd that this was just another occasion for wealthy people to display their generosity. That is, until Trump and he met eye to eye. Jamal went around the event area, listening to the ecstatic chatter surrounding him. The crowd had gathered to see the well-known businessman Donald Trump, whose fancy cars, security guards, and men in fitted suits for Jamal were all part of a world very different from his own. His world consisted of shabby notebooks, secondhand clothing, and a mother who was struggling to make ends meet, but he never gave up on his dreams in spite of everything. At that moment, he was bumped by someone who was hurrying by him. When Jamal stumbled, his notebook fell out of his hand and skidded across the sidewalk. For a brief moment, everything stopped when the crowd fell silent, and their gazes shifted between Trump and the notebook. Trump knelt down and picked it up, flipping through the pages with his brows slightly furrowed. This was no ordinary notebook, as it contained sophisticated mathematical formulas and intricate engineering calculation diagrams. Trump lifted his head and gazed at the anxious but perceptive boy in front of him. "Did you do all these calculations yourself?" he asked, and Jamal paused, his shoulders stiffening. "Yes, I just like playing with numbers," Trump said, referring to a question that is typically met with laughter or derision. He acknowledged that his voice was no more than a whisper. Trump looked over the notebook once again. These weren't simply random thoughts. They were the result of a brilliant intellect. But more than that, Trump saw the silent desperation of a young man whose goals were too huge for the life he was leading. "What is your greatest dream?" Before, no one had ever bothered to ask Jamal that question. But now he was standing in front of one of the most influential business people in the world, being asked what he wanted out of life. Jamal raised his head and paused for a few moments before uttering the words. His resolve to become an engineer was burning in his eyes. Trump took a minute to think over the boy's response. He said that if given the correct education and opportunities, this child had the potential to change the world. But in this neighborhood and with the lifestyle he was leading, that chance was essentially non-existent. Trump looked to his group. "What can we do to get this kid an education?" he said firmly. Jamal's mother and he anxiously walked to Trump's office the following morning. The towering glass skyscraper, with its sleek and polished surface reflecting the city, felt like a completely different world from the one they knew. Jamal's hands were sweating because he had spent his entire life being ignored, dismissed, and undervalued. The surrounding staff exchanged perplexed looks. No one had anticipated this, but Jamal's heart pounded in his chest for the first time in his life. Someone believed in him, and this would be the moment that changed his fate forever. With the magnificent office doors opened to reveal a spacious room with a huge desk and a stunning view of the city skyline. If today was any different, his mother sensed his anxiety and put a comforting hand on his shoulder, telling him that no matter what happens, it's worth trying. Trump smiled and said, "So, our young genius has arrived." He held out his hand to Jamal, who for the first time in his life felt seen and not judged for his situation, but rather recognized for his potential. With a simple nod from Trump, a team entered the room and Jamal was immediately put to the test for 2 hours solving logic puzzles, mathematical equations, and engineering problems. As the final exam came to an end, Trump and his advisors waited as the results came in, each one more astounding than the previous. This youngster wasn't simply gifted. He was amazing. Trump folded his hands and sat back in his chair while staring into Jamal's eyes. "I have an offer for you," Trump said, "but there's one condition." Jamal's eyes widened in shock. Trump hesitated for a second before saying, "You will never give up. There will be challenges and people will doubt you, but if you quit, it will all be for nothing." Jamal took a deep breath, looked directly at Trump, and responded with unyielding resolve. "I will never give up," while his mother's eyes glistened with tears. This was the moment that would alter everything. With a sly smile, Trump passed a document over the desk and said, "Welcome to Harvard." With that, Jamal's ascent to prominence officially began at Harvard University. Despite being one of the brightest students accepted on a full scholarship, Jamal had reached a place he could never have dreamed of years ago. From the first day, he felt the critical looks. The only one without a fancy suit, the only one who hadn't grown up in luxury. And soon the whispers began, "What is a scholarship student doing here? This place is too huge for him. Isn't he from the projects?" Jamal clenched his fists, but then he recalled his pledge to Trump that he would not give up and that he would prove his professors wrong. He spent sleepless nights in the lab creating new engineering solutions. And while they were impressed by his potential, Jamal wanted more. An international engineering contest was announced one day. After months of research and development, Jamal developed a revolutionary prosthetic that could smoothly merge with the neural system, enabling users to move their limbs normally and even feel again. This idea immediately began to race through his mind: the future of bionic prosthetics. Millions of lives could be changed by this technology. On the day of the competition, engineers from all over the world crowded the auditorium to showcase their innovations. No one had high expectations for Jamal when he took the stage, but as soon as he began speaking, the entire room fell silent. This system not only helps amputees walk again, but it also gives them a sense of control over their movements, just like before he showed the judges and professors real-time data from prototype. As Jamal left the stage, the audience exploded in applause and gave him a standing ovation. Then, the professor leaned over and whispered, "This could revolutionize medicine and engineering." His phone vibrated in his pocket, and he looked at the screen where a name appeared. Donald Trump. When Jamal entered Trump's office, a contract was waiting for him on the desk. "Sign it to launch your own engineering firm." His heart raced as he replied, "Young engineer, come to my office. We need to talk." He had no idea what was about to happen, but he could sense that his life was about to change once more. "I'm still very young." Yet Jamal's breath caught in his throat. Trump grinned. "You don't have to be old to create the future you require." Vision in a few years, Jamal started his own engineering company and established his own scholarship program. He was now the one offering opportunities to thousands of young business owners, rather than the one requesting them. One day, he stood on a stage and looked out at them, saying, "Someone gave me a chance when no one else would, and now I'm giving it to you," in the entire room, applauding from the bottom of their hearts. They realized that this was not simply a tale of one boy's achievement, but also of a single choice that altered the course of history.